Hey guys, it's here bringing you another video, and welcome to another patch note video. So this is patch 12.11. So this is officially the first patch since the durability update. And just to kind of give a little overview, like how do I feel it went? I actually feel it went pretty well. I think most of my Twitch audience, I think most of the YouTube audience, I think most people have actually really enjoyed the direction of the game since the durability update. And all I will say is, thankfully, RIOT seemed to have paid attention a little bit more than they were first, potentially. As one of the initial changes, obviously the patch is every 2 weeks, and after a week, they kind of give the preview to the upcoming patch. So last week, they gave a preview, and they were basically buffing Assassins. And obviously, to a lot of people, that was really annoying, because for 2 years, we had Assassin meta, 2 years, we had one-shot burst meta, and just, you know, not even a week had gone by and there was already talks about buffing Assassins. And for the most part, Assassins are still fine. You know, I think most people would agree they are fine. What the difference is now is you actually have to play as an assassin, where before, you know, so many assassins, there's that very, you know, popular clip of that Kiana main going around, that they're building as a bruiser, they're on 30 odd farm at 10 minutes, but they'd still normally one-shot people. That's the difference, is you actually have to, you can't just play as a bruiser, you have to play as an assassin. But so many assassin players have got used to not doing that and still getting away with it. So now that people have realized, oh, I actually do have to play as an assassin, I have to build as an assassin, and then yes, I can still assassinate people, RIOT have actually they've dropped those buffs. They might revisit them, they've said. They don't need to, but that is what they've said. So let's get into it. So the numbers are in. Champions are now more durable after the sweeping changes we introduced in last patch. This week, we're on the cleanup duty to restore balance to the Rift. Two big things to keep in mind here. First of all, we don't want to over-nerf, over-buff any champions as an immediate response to the durability update, which again is why it was so shocking that they were going to buff Assassins straight away, and they stopped doing that. And we're avoiding this by considering each champ's individual strengths and weaknesses relative to their overall class and role balance and preferred itemization choices. Second, since the patch 12.10 healing, which healing obviously yes has been nerfed, but I don't know about you guys, but I'm still seeing some crazy healing. Like I literally today had an Aatrox that was near death, and he literally, I'm not even kidding, healed to full health within a second maybe, and literally from nearly dead to full health in a second. And I'm like, okay, so healing is still crazy. But anyway, so since the healing and shielding nerfs we've done across the board, they ended up affecting some champions more than others. This round we're going to go through champions individually and return heal and shielding power where needed, or reinvesting that lost power into other aspects of their kit. So yeah, let's see how it goes. So the overview, which again is quite small because there's a lot in it, but just to kind of go through it, we've got nerfs to Brand, Gwen, Rust for Kayn, Kog'Maw, Lulu, Master Yi, Rengar, Senna, Swain, Taliyah, Veigar, and Wukong. And we have buffs to Aphelios, Caitlyn, Gragas, Aurelia, Lee Sin, Nunu, Rakan, Ryze, Samira, Sona, Sylas, Tamkench, Taric, Tryndamere, and Xin Zhao. We're getting new stuff. So Bellevue is here. And sorry that I'm off camera. I was just kind of reading it because it's very small. Still getting used to this kind of camera angle. And sorry, by the way, the microphone arm is in the way. I've changed the direction where the microphone's coming in, and tomorrow I'm getting a new microphone arm that will be lower. This is what they call a high microphone arm. It kind of peaks upwards and then down. I'm getting one that is more low level, and it will be out the way, so that'll be good. But anyway, yeah, we're getting Bellevue. We're getting Ocean Song skin line, and that is Ashe, Zeri, Yone, Nidalee, and Seraphine. We're getting Prestige Seraphine, and obviously Belve's launch skin is Battle Boss. We're then also getting a champion adjustments to Fizz, Olaf, and Zeri. We're getting system changes to Mage Items, Grievous Wounds, Tank Items, Fighter Items, Umbral Glaive, Kraken Slayer, Blade of the King, and Turrets. I will say, a bit of a spoiler, I do know that they're technically reducing the power of turrets. I really wish they didn't. I actually love the fact that turrets have been so strong this last patch, because you shouldn't really be able to get dove at level 3, level 4 and get away with it. And, you know, if you're going to get a kill, at least you should die. And that's what the turrets have done. The buff to turrets made it so if you're going to tower dive that early, yeah, you might kill your opponent, but you're also going to die, where it does seem, and like what other people have said, it does slowly kind of seem that Riot is just reverting what they've done to make the game better, which is a bit lame. But anyway, let's get into it. So it's a pretty decent patch, so we won't dilly-dally on each thing too much, I will say. I might spend a bit more time on champions that I personally find really interesting, or any changes particularly, but for the most part, we'll kind of go through it pretty quick. So Bellevue is here. Very quick thoughts about Bellevue. Obviously, I made videos about her. In all honesty, I think she's going to be a nightmare to balance because she's a modern-day Master Yi, and she's a pure stat check champion, and that's kind of what Riot does nowadays. They make a lot of pure stat check champions that are hard to balance. Viego, etc. They're all kind of the same. Yone. So I do feel that she's going to be insanely hard to balance. I don't think she's very hard to play. She's, again, very Master Yi-centric. If you said to me it's a Void Master Yi that was released in 2022, you have Bellevue. So that is what she is. But anyway, so we've got Aphelios. So passive attack speed and lethality will, with rank up, has been increased. So it's just buffing Aphelios, which isn't too bad. He's a very scary AD carry in the right hands. Brand, Brand, we did make that video on. I still don't think he's great in mid lane, but he did do a lot of damage if he gets an okay lane phase in mid, or still very good in support where it's a bit safer. So passive percent health burn decreased. So both for the passive burn damage and the detonate burn damage both have gone down. Caitlyn. Don't see much Caitlyn anymore. QAD scaling decreased early and increased late. Mana cost increased early and decreased late. And E-base damage increased and cooldown decreased. So they're giving her less a bit early game. So again, you know, that's fine. She's still high range poke kind of early compared to like a Vayne or something. But she quite falls off compared to other AD carries, so they're just kind of trying to give her a bit more scaling, potentially, is what I think they're doing. So her Q physical damage was 50 up to 210. It's now 50 up to 210, and then scaling plus your AD was plus 125% AD, and it's now 205, where it used to be 190. So that is a 15% bonus AD for your late game. That is pretty nice, pretty nice. And the mana cost of it also has gone down. So that's overall buffs for Caitlyn's mid to late game. And then the same for the Caliber Net. The damage of it is going, that's not bad. 230 max rank to 280 for a non-damage ability. And its cooldown is going down by 2 seconds at rank 5. More utility for Caitlyn is never bad. So that's actually pretty good buffs for Caitlyn. Fizz, so health growth decreased and mana growth increased. So the Tidal Trickster has been keeping his head above water, but his big mana costs feel pretty bad in extended combat. So again, when the durability update has made fights longer, champions like Fizz, that his mana costs are really high, that he's only really supposed to go for one big combo, and then he's basically well, considering nowadays you're supposed to not be able to properly one combo people. If you one combo people, you can then move on to somebody else. It felt pretty bad that he, you know, after one combo was So they're just giving him a little bit less lane tankiness in the early game with health growth eventually, but he's getting a lot more mana growth. So that's a pretty nice buff overall. Gragas. Q AP scaling increased, cooldown decreased, and E cooldown decreased. Buffs to Gragas. So damage has gone up for his barrel, 10% more ability power ratio. So if you're playing AP Gragas, that's a pretty big buff, to be honest. And the cooldown of it has also gone down a second each rank. That's a big buff to his Q. And the Body Slam also is going down on cooldown 2 seconds early game. Again, that's really good. I would say especially, well, top lane, jungle, yes, but top lane Gragas that some people do play, that's a big buff for top lane Gragas because the E is your bread and butter in lane phase. Gwen, I do know this champion is very, very strong. I played against one earlier today. You'll see that video in a few days' time. Let's just say I played Kayle, and it was a pretty spicy game. But anyway, W cooldown increased, bonus armor and MR decreased early, and now scales with ability rank, and your E cooldown refund from your basic attack is decreased. So, yeah, a couple nerfs potentially here. So when you're in your mist, I think that's your W. She used to get 20 flat MR and armor, plus 5% AP. You're now getting less of that in the early game, eventually getting the 20, but at rank 5. And I think she maxes W last, so this will feels bad man in the early game, but arguably Gwen isn't supposed to be that strong early. She's a scaling champion, yet a lot of the time you're seeing her win early games now. So that's just overall a nerf, and the cooldown of it is also going up. big nerf actually there. Rank 5 was 14 seconds. It's now a rank 18 seconds cooldown at rank 5 instead of 14. So that is pretty big, but the W is a pretty obnoxious ability, the immune and all that. So I'm fine with that. And then the cooldown, also, you're getting less cooldown refunded. Used to, when you E and auto, you got 60% of your cooldown back for your E. You're now only getting 50%, so it's less for that as well. Aurelia, Q healing increased and E cooldown decreased early, so you're getting more healing off your Q, which I'm not completely convinced that's the thing that Aurelia needed. Her healing is still very high, and then her E also is going down on cooldown. So they're giving her stronger early game, which is exactly what Aurelia needs, question mark, but sure. Kayn, his Q for Dark Inform, Q damage decreased in Dark Inform. Again, kind of to me is like the Aatrox is the healing, honestly, of Kayn. Well, Kayn is a pretty obnoxious champion, no matter if he's going blue or red. But red Kayn doesn't die, does a lot of damage, and then heals like an absolute crazy thing. So I don't really see a weakness of Kayn. There are some champions in League, the more, again, it has to be said, the more modern champions, and Kayn I would include in that category, there's very little weaknesses to them. High mobility, high burst, high healing, high damage. It's like, But anyway, the Q on your Dark Inform used to do 65% AD plus 5% in brackets, 5.5 per bonus AD of target's maximum health. It's now doing 65, so the same. How's this a nerf? Oh, God, that's hardly anything. Wow. So it was doing 5% of target maximum health, but then in brackets, extra 5%, 5.5%, sorry, per 100 bonus AD. It's now a bonus 5% per 100 bonus AD. So a solid 0.5, less than 1%, 0.5% bonus AD nerf. Yeah, that's not really a nerf, is it? Let's be honest. So there's that. Kog'Maw. I did also play Kog'Maw today. This was pre-patch, but you'll see the video. Yeah, Kog'Maw needed a nerf. You'll see why in that video. Very, very strong. And yeah, I'm completely fine with him being nerfed. So the Q armor and MR shred decreased, the passive attack speed decreased of your Q, and the W percent max health damage on hit decreased. Yeah, so it's pretty much all round nerfs to Q and W, kind of the two big things that gives Kog'Maw his Kog'Mawness, really. So I'm kind of okay with that. Lee Sin has been struggling for quite some time, has to be said. Base AD increased and Q damage increased. So his base AD is going up by 2. A little bit of a buff through his early game there especially. And his Q is getting more base damage, really. So base damage starting 5 each rank for your Q. And then the minimum damage is going up by 5. And the maximum damage, because remember it's an execute, the lower health somebody is, the more it does, is going up by 10. So a little bit of a buff there. It will make Lee Sin feel a bit better, probably in the early game more than anywhere else. Still not great for scaling. Lilia, base health decreased, passive damage decreased. Again, Lilia's been kind of taking over a little bit, so nerfs to her I don't think is bad. Again, any champion that can build Liandry's and Demonic in modern day when everyone's health has gone up is obviously, it's been a buff. That's why Brand and Lilia and hell even Anivia, you know, Nivea got a hot fix nerf. Literally a couple days after the patch, they hot fixed Nivea because they actually felt she was too strong because she could buy Liandry's and Demonic. Again, the nerf did hurt her a bit. I have felt like the nerf, you know, you can feel it. If you're an Nivea player, you can definitely feel that nerf on her E more than anywhere else. But, you know, it's still manageable. I felt that Nivea needed a nerf the whole patch. The whole season. So I was kind of fine with it. But there's that. Master Yi. So Master Yi, again, that type of champion that is I'm always gonna find funny to get nerfed because he's awful. You know, that's the thing. He's awful in my rating bracket, but he's amazing in lower rating brackets. So I'll always find it weird that he's being nerfed, but it makes sense for some areas. I think Calcep, you know, if people know that name, he posted, and you know, I know overall win rates aren't the biggest thing to go by, but he posted 3 win rate of like why Master Yi was getting nerfed, and he posted 3 that one was, I think it was Iron rank, and it was like a 55 or 56% win rate for Master Yi, and then he posted I think something like Master, like the rank that he's in, and it was like 44 or 45%. It was really bad. And that, I'm going to be honest, that just sums up Master Yi. Someone like Kalsev, all respect to him, he even should know Master Yi just isn't a good champion in Master. Like if he chooses to one trick him, that's fine. But yes, you know, that's the thing. He is a beginner friendly champion that's going to be punished the higher rating you go. That's Master Yi. So when it's doing really well in low rating, they need to nerf it, because that's kind of the whole point. So base health, health growth is going down, and Wuju style, the bonus true damage on hit is also going down. But again, these aren't huge nerfs. You know, it's worth mentioning. It's not huge nerfs, but they are nerfs. Nunu and Willump. So Q healing against non-champions increase, so more sustain in the jungle. And E cooldown now decreases with ability rank. So just buffs to Nunu. I will say I'm not a massive fan of Nunu. Some people, maybe it's not me, I don't know. Some people actually say that Nunu, and you know, feel free to give your opinion here, Nunu might be the most ELO inflating, apart from Yuumi, might be the most ELO inflating champion in the game. That if you play a champion, you're going to get a bit of a higher rank than you probably should. Yuumi is probably the highest ELO inflating champion that exists, because you literally can just stay on people and kind of get carried every game. But of a champion that you're actually playing yourself, Nunu is kind of that, potentially. You know, let me know what you guys think. Obviously, also worth mentioning, if you can throw a like on this video, that'd be much appreciated. I am recording this. It's nearly 10 p.m. I'm recording this, going to edit it, get it uploaded literally for today's second video. This video will be coming out in 2 hours time of me recording this. So if you appreciate that, please do throw a like on the video. Olaf. I've heard Olaf is very strong. I will say I've not really experienced it since the patch myself, but I do take people's word that it was a bit too strong. So passive maximum lifesteal value threshold increased, Q damage increased, minimum recast time decreased though, W cooldown increased late, and R passive armor and MR decreased. So obviously it is worth mentioning, something like Olaf slipping through being a bit too strong is completely acceptable to me, because he literally received like a basic like update to the champion just before the durability update happened. So they couldn't probably fully expect what was going to happen. So he is getting some overall nerfs. So his maximum threshold for lifesteal is going to 30% of your max health, not 22.5. And that lifesteal, though, is going down. 8% minimum, so 2% nerf. But the bigger nerf is 5% at level 18. Q undertow damage is going up a little bit. A minimum time between casts was 3 seconds, now 2.5, so that's a tiny buff technically. The W though is going bigger cooldown, 2 seconds, so that's kind of what you can Q more, but you can't use your W as much, and you're also gaining less resistances from your ulti. Rakan, Q healing increased, W cooldown decreased, E mana cost decreased, shield strength increased, so just overall buffs to Rakan there, not too bad. Rengar, base health decreased, R cooldown increased late. So yeah, Rengar, you know, that's the thing. Why did they stop the assassin buffs? Because assassins have been doing completely fine. That's the point. Rengar is doing great. And that's the thing. Rengar has been finding a lot of success with his lethality and fighter builds recently. They were going to buff lethality items. That's literally how crazy that was. So I'm very happy that they saw sense. So base health is going down considerably actually in the early game there for Rengar. And his ultimate, he can't use it as often. Wow, there's a 10-second nerf at rank 2, 20-second nerf at rank 3. Damn, that's big nerf actually for Rengar. Ryze always is going to struggle. So E AP ratio increase, mana cost decrease. The problem with Ryze is fundamentally he's either going to be pretty useless or broken because of the nature of the champion. He's a hyperscaling mage that sometimes scales off mana and stuff like that. Like, he's always going to be, you have to always be careful when something like Ryze, because typically he is kind of that way. You know, Ryze was one of those trifecta champions that Riot at one time said, we don't know what to do with them, we're just going to give up. We're going to leave them in a relatively weak state and just stop, you know, until we think of something, we're leaving them alone. And that was Ryze, Azir, and Kalista. Those three champions, literally Riot said, We're not touching them. We don't know what to do with them. They're a nightmare to balance. They eventually kind of sorted them out a little bit, but Ryze has always been the one that they can't fully get right. Samira, AD growth increased, Q AD scaling increased. So since the durability update, Samira has been struggling to find those explosive leads and snowball opportunities. We're increasing her scaling a bit, so she's more powerful to stall her enemies. It's the nature of Samira. She's feast or famine. She's a melee AD carry. It's either going to go very well, or it's either going to go very bad. There's no in between, and I'm, for one, I'm completely okay with that. There are some champions that are high risk, high reward. Think of Katarina. She's supposed to be high risk, high reward, but Samira is high risk, high reward for an AD carry. She truly is, and I think that's fine. Senna, passive missed wraith drop rate for Senna's minion kills increased. Oh, are they bringing back AD carry Senna? Oh my god, they are. Q slow strength decreased and slow duration decreased earlier, now scales of rank. So if you were killing minions, you only had a 2.1% chance of getting a soul from the minion you've killed. It's now going up to 8.3% of the chance. If you kill a minion, it'll drop a slow. That is, 4 times, basically, roughly 4 times what it was. You potentially could see AD carry Senna back again, which is the thing. Again, very hard to balance a champion around being both an AD carry and a support, I will say that. Q piercing darkness, also the slow has gone down, and the slow duration now scales, so it's a little bit less obnoxious in the early game at least. So I think that's fine. Swain, very strong champion, obviously once again, kind of like Olaf, like we mentioned, is he had a kind of mini rework update just before the durability update, so it is quite hard to predict exactly what he was going to be. And like we mentioned earlier, he is a Leandry and demonic champion, which those are the 2 items right now that you buy as a mage. So he benefits from that too. So healing is going down with his passive. Magic damage is going down with his W. And scaling 15% less, but obviously that's the W. It's not exactly your big damage ability. It's a bonus if you land it, but it's not something you're relying on. And then your ultimate, the bigger thing, healing per tick, is also going down, both in flat, starting at rank 2, and 2% ability power also. So that is going to hurt him quite a bit. Sylas, again, quite a hard champion to balance, is either very strong or very weak. W, I have seen, obviously, as we all have, Sylas heal in insane amounts very, very fast. And if you let him get a bit too spicy, it is worrying. So the mana cost of it is going down, so you can use it more. The healing of it is going up. No flat, but AP, so that's scaling. So the later in the game, he'll be healing more. And the cooldown of it is going... He's getting a buff to that for the early game. So you can use W more. That's very scary to me. And his E is also going a second buff, so he can use it also more. So basically, it's going to be a more active early game Sylas with better healing scaling late. That is incredibly scary to me, because Sylas could just take over the meta. Like, it's just that type of champ. Tam Kench, passive magic damage on hit increased, Q heal increased, and R shield strength increased. So just some buffs to Tam Kench, but nothing too major, I don't think, pretty much. I still think he is, well, it wasn't nice to Tam in any of his roles. We're giving his buffs basically to give him... It makes him better in extended fights, but I think the Riot are trying to lean him more to be a support. Talia, since her update, again, very strong champion. She basically, why Talia was also, good, by the way. Her damage isn't bad eventually when she scales, but obviously mid lane is quite roam-centric, and Talia is one of the queens of roaming when she's in mid lane, so it kind of just suited the meta really, really well. So base health is going down. Cooldown of her E is going up. Damage is going down. No, it's technically going... Oh, it's going up a tiny bit in the early game, but then going down from mid to late game for the 1 rock damage. 5 rock damage, so if you don't have worked ground, I think, is going up in the early game, down in late game. And the boulder damage is going... up in the early game, down in the late game. Because that's kind of, everyone kept telling me, was like, dude, she sucks in the early game, probably even more than Kayle, but her scaling is nuts, and she one-shots everything. That's kind of what it seems that Riot's doing here. They're giving her a bit of a better early game, but then making her late game worse. So it's kind of evening the balance of the extremes a bit. Jungle, they're buffing the jungle as well, so she can jungle again, clearly. Taric, Q healing increased, mana cost decreased and no longer increases with rank, and E cooldown decreased, stun duration increased too. Overall buffs to Taric, really. I remember, some of you may remember, I think it was last season, I actually played a decent amount of Taric for like a patch or two, and I actually really enjoyed myself. He was actually kind of fun. But I do think he does struggle, especially the higher rating you go. He just gets outperformed compared to other supports. And that's okay. You know, I don't think every single champion needs to be amazing. I don't think every single champion needs to be like the champ. So I think, to me, that's kind of okay. Tryndamere, again, to me, this champion is always going to be a problem. You know, Tryndamere took a tumble in patch 12.10. I've literally seen Tryndamere's could be completely fine, one-shotting people, healing a crazy amount since the patch. So to me, Tryndamere is just one of those champions that's always going to divide opinion. He's a pure stat stick champion with absolutely no skill involved. He is a nightmare to balance, kind of like Belveth's going to be, because any champion that is basically just auto-attacking you to death is hard to balance, naturally, because if you make it too weak, it literally is useless because it's only auto-attacking you. And if it's too strong, well, because it's only auto-attacking you, you just die so quick. And you're like, oh, okay. So it's a nightmare to balance. So I will say to Riot, they have a hard time doing it, but doesn't mean I need to agree. And obviously it's worth mentioning, obviously it depends what rating you're in. High rating Tryndamere's might be a bit better than low rating Tryndamere's. Tryndamere is definitely more useful than, let's say, a Master Yi in the higher ratings. Because obviously Master Yi can just simply get killed very, very quickly and easily. CC lock, yes, Tryndamere has the same weakness, very auto-attack centric. But Tryndamere's got his ultimate that survives. Tryndamere also has his heal that heals him a lot. So it's a bit different, but yeah. The base heal is going up, and the healing per Fury stack is also going up considerably in late game, by the way. And the ultimate is going down. So yes, Tryndamere is going to be very obnoxious. I do know a lot of people there, they do exist, that they literally just ban Tryndamere. They just don't want him in their games. And that, by the way, is completely fine. I'm back to banning Yone, because screw that champion. Veigar. Base armor decreased and armor growth increased. And E cooldown increased. So less base armor and more growth. You eventually... It will even out eventually, or even be a buff in mid to late game. And the cooldown of his E is going up by 2 seconds in early game, but then eventually evens out at rank 5. That's fine. And then, yeah, it's a bug fix that it now correctly says how many stacks he's got. Wukong, and I will say we're not too far away from being done. We're about 2/3 of the way, as you can see down here. We're about 2/3 of the way, so not too much more to go. Long patch, though, which we kind of expected. Wukong, W cooldown increased early, E bonus damage to monsters decreased. So again, Wukong just was a bit too strong since the update. And yes, I did see quite a few Wukongs do quite well, so I'm fine with that. Just taking a little bit off the top, let's say. And that's the thing. These nerfs aren't going to just suddenly stop all these champions being played. The Wukong will still be fine. It's just taking that little extra layer of strength that it's a bit too much. So that's fine. Xin, passive healing AD ratio increased and W damage increased. Mana cost now decreases with rank. So yeah, so pretty much he is getting passive healing AD. He's just getting buffs, just straight up buffs with Xin. To be honest, I've always felt like Xin, he doesn't feel as good as other equivalents of him, if that makes sense. He does feel like kind of a bit of an older dog compared to like some of the modern versions of healing. You know, I know he's not in the same role, but like Xin and Aatrox, they're kind of similar, but Aatrox is just better. But obviously Zin's a jungler and Aatrox is a top lane, so I guess you can't fully compare them. Zeri, Q, oh god, what are they doing here? So let's just see this. Zeri, we've nerfed you so much you haven't been remotely scary. So this time around, we're giving you more damage to make you merry. That said, buffs come at a cost and we're being wary. So we're lowering your utility and mobility, you electric carry. I said this, if anybody remembers. I'm not going to go through all the individual changes, but they're just buffing some stuff, nerfing others. Champions with fundamentally broken kits are always going to be a nightmare to balance, and Zeri's another one of those champs. Pretty much, I would say, you know, in percentages, in the last two to 3 years of new champions in League, 90% of them have broken kits. 90% of them are very hard to balance, and 90% of them probably have mechanics that they shouldn't have. And Riot, like the Akali rework is a great example of that. Akali rework came out with probably double the mechanics it has now, and they've slowly had to take mechanics away to try and balance it. It's basically new champions or reworks in a nutshell. They just have too much stuff. It's what I've always said, and Zeri is no exception. So will this do anything for Zeri? It'll either do nothing and she'll still be kind of useless, or she's going to be the most broken AD carry in the game again. There's not going to be any in between, because that's the nature of broken kits. Grievous Wounds. So despite the systematic nerf last patch, Grievous Wounds is still too impactful in the game. I would very much disagree with that, but anyway, forcing us to push healing to unreasonable levels. We think Grievous Wounds itself should be a conscious choice that really shines against enemies with overwhelming amounts of healing, not just moderate amounts, since that detracts from more exciting items that you can buy. So we're nerfing Grievous Wounds itself a little bit more, but also compensating the items that apply it to keep them roughly the same power level. So Grievous Wounds was 30%, it's now 25%. And the empowered one was 50%, it's now 40%. Just to put it in perspective, on old patch, the standard Grievous Wounds was 40%, and the empowered Grievous Wounds, when you completed the main item, was 60%. Jesus Christ. I still, by the way, still see healing do insane amounts. I know, I do, and people are buying Grievous Wounds. So Riot must be, again, I still, I know it sounds bad, but I still believe the balance team doesn't play the game. I think that's pretty evident with a lot of their decisions, but they must have different data than I have when I play games or something, because I still see healing insane amounts. So they are giving some individual buffs to Bramble, Thornmail, Executioner's getting more attack damage there. So is Chainsword. So basically any item obviously is healing for less, but it's getting buffs in other places. Like that Chempunk Chainsword is getting 10 more AD and 10 more ability haste. That's actually pretty good for the item. Oblivion Orb is getting 5 more ability power. The Morellonomicon is getting 10 more ability power and 50 more health. So they are trying to give it a bit more strength in places where you're losing out on the healing, but you're getting more ability power. So at least they're doing that. I'm honestly surprised that they're even doing that, because I would have expected them not to do any of that stuff. Mage items. So mage items have been a little bit strong. Well, one of them has been a little bit too strong, what is worth mentioning. So Crown has been a bit too weak, so they're buffing Crown. Everfrost is okay in situations, depending the champion. There are some champions that I see people buy it and it makes me sad. I get really sad when I see people buy a Nivea Everfrost. It's awful on a Nivea. Like, the only people, to me, that should buy Everfrost and Nivea is people that are bad with the champion, that aren't confident you're going to land any Qs. And if you're not going to land any Qs on a Nivea, just don't play the champion. Like, to me, it's mind-boggling that people buy Everfrost on a Nivea. Liandry's obviously is the item, so they are nerfing Liandry's how much by... Okay, it's a nerf, but it's not going to ruin the item. So they're nerfing the burn damage. It did 60 per tick, it's now doing 50, but it's staying with the scaling. So it's still 6% ability power, and it's still 4% of a target's maximum health. So it still will do, it's an anti-tank item. That's what it's supposed to be, and that's what it's still going to be, and that is fine. So again, a little bit of a nerf, but nothing major. Night Harvester's getting more ability haste. So what I think they're trying to do is, realistically, you're either buying Everfrost on some champions, most are buying Liandry's, and most are buying Riftmaker. No one buys Night Harvester, and no one's buying Crown. So they're buffing Crown, and they're buffing Night Harvester to try and make other options available for certain champions, which is fine. Yeah, so Riftmaker's getting less ability power, and ability haste for Night Harvester's going up. And the cooldown per champion is going down a good 10 seconds. So that's actually a pretty good buff for Night Harvester there. Tank items are becoming cheaper. So, yeah, just cheaper and getting more health. Oh, no, wait. So, cheaper for Bammies, so you get it earlier in the game. but the combined cost in Frostfire is going up because the total cost is unchanged. It just, you get Bammies quicker, which is an earlier power spike, but you're also going to get more health. So that's pretty good. Same for Sunfire, same for Turbo Chem Tank. More magic resist for Abyssal Mask, and bonus magic resist unmake. So 9 bonus magic resist per cursed enemy, so that's going up. Knight's Vow, more ability haste. Randuin's more armor, more Spirit Visage magic resistance, and more armor on Zeke's. All pretty good buffs there. Like, that's pretty good for tanks, actually. The fighter items. Fighters, I will say, have been a pretty big winner of the patch. It is worth mentioning. Aatrox, Camille, Fiora. There are a few others, but yeah, those are all doing really well. Death Stance is quite a big reason for that. So they are nerfing the heal ratio. It was 140% bonus AD of your heal ratio. It's now 120, so a 20% nerf, but it's still going to be obnoxiously strong. Blade the Rune King is getting a 1% lifesteal buff. More and more Mortius, again, another very obnoxiously strong item. They're only just making it a longer cooldown, so it's still going to be game-changing every 75 seconds. Sterix is going... the claws that catch bonus AD is 40%, it's down 45% of base AD, so it's different. And the shield was 70%, it's now 75% bonus health, so there's that. Gore Drinker, you're getting more ability haste per legendary item, and then some AD, you know, again, Kraken Slayer, you know, you're kind of also starting to see, you know, Viego and potentially Bellevue be buying this item, so they are naturally nerfing Kraken Slayer because with the durability update, any item like Kraken Slayer is going to be better. So they are just tapping it down on its 3rd stack bonus. So bonus true damage on the 3rd attack was 60 plus 45% bonus AD. Is now 50 plus 40% bonus AD. So just overall a nerf there, but that's fine. And Umbral Glaive is going up 5% more cooldown on Umbral Glaive. And the bigger thing for me is this. First towers kind of slap right now. We've overshot some of the early game damage buffs to towers in the early update by a bit. I really wish they kept it the same, like genuinely. So this is just the first towers. I love it. I genuinely love it. But they're nerfing it. So the damage of the towers from minute 0 to 13 minutes 30 was doing 167 to 391 damage. It's now doing 162, so a 5 nerf right at the beginning of the game, to 344. So that's a near 50 nerf at rank, well, at 13 minutes 30 roughly. Again, I still kind of like when the damage was high. You know, it's a nerf, but the damage will still do a decent amount to us. But I wish they didn't touch it. You know, if they wanted to change it in another 2 weeks, change it in another month. Just, again, you've literally just done this change, and within 2 weeks, it's already been updated. It's like, you could have let it could have let it flourish a little bit more, in my opinion. Here we go. Behavioral systems. End of game chat is now opt-in. You'll only see messages from other players in the post-game lobby if you click on the chat icon or enter a chat message. Oh, wow. So you have to opt in to see that. By default, you will not see anybody type. I will say one thing. Riot do seem to actually be doing things to counter toxicity now. Just in the end screen, the new end screen, since challenges, we only get 2 lines of chat. That's better. You know, who really cares about the chat? And if you want to engage in that, you have to click on it to open it up, and that's fine. But for the average player who doesn't, they don't need to see as much of it. And now even this, you're not even going to see it. You literally have to click on it, like the chat icon, to even see people typing. I like it. So I will say I'm very, very rarely going to ever click on it. Sometimes, like we all do, I never type in there. But if I see people be toxic and they're all moaning and raging at each other, yeah, sometimes I read through it to see what they're all saying. So you can still do that if you wanted to. But no, I think that's actually a pretty nice change. Bug fixes, as always, and then the upcoming skins. But there we go, everybody. Pretty long patch, but that was to be expected because it's the patch after the durability update. What I would say is, thankfully, so far, it doesn't seem Riot is fully, kind of going back to what the game was, because it did seem about a week ago that's what Riot were looking to do, and a lot of people on Twitter were like, really? Like, don't do it. and it does seem they backed away from that, which is good. But yeah, that's going to be it. If you guys did enjoy this video, please do let me know what you think about it down below. But if you can smash the like on the video, that will be amazing. And I don't know about you guys, but I've actually been really happy with the content that we're putting out at the moment. Obviously, of roughly me uploading this, you're getting the Master Promotion series. And that was very stressful. It was a stressful time in my life with the medication and everything I was on at the time. But hopefully you're enjoying it. But yeah, absolutely crazy. But that is going to be it. Patch 12.11 will be coming out tomorrow. And just a small little thing at the end as well. That also does mean that the new TFT set will be coming out as well tomorrow too. So that's cool. But that's going to be it. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys next time. Goodbye.
Call down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace. Restore our glory to live forever. Bring down the dark regime.